Just syncing out to everybody, making sure everybody is ready. Cool. This is Justin Brady with the Iowa Podcast, of course. Thanks for everyone joining us live today. Appreciate that. We're going to hit the magic record button, and of course, this will be publishing on Wednesday. So thank you to everybody joining us to get a sneak peek of how the sausage is made. Iowa pork in that sausage, of course. Anyway, that's what we're talking about today. All right. I'm Justin Brady in the Jethro's Barbecue studio, and today the White House has done some contingency thing. SNAP benefits were going to expire. It was down to the wire. It's Monday, and SNAP cost the government $9 billion per month, but because Congress did not appropriate funds, this puts a contingency fund into play. And so that was released by the White House today, but it only covers half of the benefits throughout November. That might be a concern. And so to talk about food insecurity is the CEO of the Food Bank of Iowa, Tami Nielson. Thank you so much for coming on the Iowa Podcast.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Justin. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's start with the big story here. This is as of being in here. So for those listening later, this is pre-recorded. This is being recorded on a Monday. I think like 45 minutes ago, right? News broke that this contingency thing is like open and will fund half benefits through November. But you were just on a call with HHS. Can you talk about that a little bit and what that was about?
Yeah, so this is breaking information and good news. As you said, that those SNAP benefits were not going to be allocated at all. And so for the month of November, the 131 households in Iowa who rely on SNAP benefits weren't going to see their EBT card loaded.
Right.
And so just recently, within the last hour, as you said, there was the news release that they are going to fund about half of it. And so I had a call that was already scheduled about the government shutdown with HHS, scheduled. It was at noon today. So meeting with the other food banks, some CAP agencies, other food providers in the state, and learned that they are putting together the process for how they will allocate those partial benefits. It's not as easy as if it were fully funded, because then it's almost like flipping a switch. However, there is some math that goes into that, and trying to allocate the correct amounts to each individual household that receives SNAP. So there's some behind the scenes things that have to happen before that money is released into those SNAP benefit cards.
That's interesting, because when people see that, half is allocated, they naturally just think everybody who has SNAP benefits is going to get half their benefits. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's how, but you're saying there is a process for how that is allocated. So could anybody be left out of the 50% of their SNAP benefits?
I'm not certain on that yet.
Wow.
So just from the call from HHS, and it was brand new information to them too as we got on the call at noon. And so there are some pieces that have to come together to determine how quickly and then how much folks will see on that card.
Okay. And so this is probably something then that will have to be decided within the next few days.
Correct.
Yeah, so we don't know. We're kind of in uncharted territory a little bit. Wow.
We are. And as you said, it's nothing that's ever happened before. We are in uncharted territory. It's just one of those things that we're learning as we go and putting the pieces together as they're given to us. And so still a lot to be determined.
Yeah, absolutely. So SNAP benefits right now, you obviously Food Bank of Iowa, you play, I don't know what the right word, you aren't fully covered by SNAP. Right. And so one thing that's interesting is I think you gave me some numbers earlier. It looks like 23% of those you serve also receive SNAP benefits. So that means a lot of people, for those keeping track at home, that are using the Food Bank of Iowa and your resources, we'll talk about how that all works later, are not getting SNAP.
Correct.
And so do you expect then to keep up with this 50% coverage that's being announced? Like, will this put more strain on the Food Bank of Iowa?
It absolutely will put more strain. It already has.
Already has?
Yes.
Wow.
Our providers last week saw an uptick in visits from folks seeking service. We're receiving a lot of phone calls and a lot of inquiries around where they're calling, where can I go for help? A lot of folks are utilizing the charitable food system for the very first time, and they don't know how to navigate that. And so they're reaching out to us for help, and we are, guiding them on where they can go to receive benefits or receive food from our partners. We have a great website, foodbankiowa.org. There's a Find Food button. So if you're in need, you can just look at that page and you can type in where you are, or maybe where you work, just to get some place located near you to receive services. And so a lot of our partners, even over the weekend, we're seeing a huge uptick in visits because people have no access to food. If their EBT card is empty, there are no food options for them other than the charitable food system. And for every one meal that the charitable food system provides, 9 are provided by SNAP.
Wait, okay. Okay. So every meal you provide, 9 are provided through SNAP.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to restate that. It's kind of a mind-blowing number. Are everybody who's using SNAP benefits, are they using it just at grocery stores, or can they use it at your affiliated food pantries? So
our affiliated food pantries, meal sites, all of that food is provided at no cost to anybody.
Okay.
Any neighbor who goes to visit, that food is provided at no cost to them. And so we really want folks to utilize all the services that our partners provide. We have about 700 partners across the 55 county service area that we're responsible for in the state of Iowa. And so a lot of wonderful providers that are there to help. We just know we can't fill the gap, where we can't fill those 9 meals where we're used to filling the one, the 9 that are filled by SNAP. It's a huge gap to fill. And so we just know that our partners, they're doing their best. They're calling in more volunteers. They're ordering a lot more food from us. But it's just an enormous gap to fill, and everybody's doing the best they can and continue to make a really big difference as folks are looking for food.
Yeah, I mean, it's a potential. I'm really bad at math because it's like, one meal, you do one meal every 9 and it's 50% of benefits. So is it like something like a 400% increase or something like that? Or is my math really awful? Everybody on this show knows I'm the worst math person.
Well, SNAP is providing 90% of the meals to folks in need. And the charitable food system provides 10%.
Right. And so everyone's going to shift over, as it is right now with the 50% coverage. Like that's the number we know for sure is accurate right now. And so everyone will probably be shifting over to your pantries. It's just a matter of fact. You're going to see a deluge of need.
100% correct. And while that news release came out stating that folks will get, about half of their normal SNAP benefits, we don't know when. They haven't gotten them yet.
Oh, they still haven't?
No.
So we're still in the gray area.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So pending payments don't feed anybody.
Right. True.
And so right now we're really stuck in that pending space. It's wonderful news. Don't get me wrong. But
it's better than zero. Yeah.
It's better than zero, but currently it still is zero because they've not been given those funds yet. And so the problem is still there that folks need to eat every day, 3 times a day. And so from, November 1st, when the payments usually go out between November 1st and the 10th of the month, that's every month, folks who were expecting their payments November 1st didn't get them. And so trying to figure out how they're going to feed themselves, how they're going to feed their children, that's still a problem right now because although we know that they will get half, we just don't know when.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, how many Iowans generally are covered by SNAP?
So it's 131,000 households in the state of Iowa, which equals 167,000 people because households often have more than one individual in them. And so we see a lot of folks on fixed incomes, senior citizens who are on fixed incomes, where SNAP provides a gap where their budget does not allow for the full amount of food needed. And we see a lot of families with children. A majority of folks that are on SNAP are working families. They're just not making a livable wage. And that's the same at all of our partner organizations, our pantries, our meal sites. They see a lot of folks who work for a living, but unfortunately, those wages don't keep up with inflation and the cost of food and heating and rent and all of those pieces that put together a family budget. There's a hole because they're just not making enough to make ends meet.
Yeah, and then there's also the issue of, you mentioned 131,000 households, and then there's also the issue of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you were on the call, I was not, but new families and new households during this period are also locked out. Is that correct?
Well,
of SNAP benefits,
of
not
SNAP
your
benefits. People can still apply for SNAP, and those benefit approvals are still going through. But people who utilized their SNAP benefits in the grocery stores, and that was enough to make ends meet for them, they didn't have to use the charitable food system because of their SNAP benefits. Well, now all of those people need the charitable food system. And so there were an awful lot of individuals that made up exactly what they needed to thrive or to have a budget just to live. However, without those benefits, their budget does not allow for the purchasing of food to make up that difference. And so that's where the problem comes in is folks don't know how to navigate the charitable food system, and for the first time they're figuring it out. They're calling us, they're calling our partners, they're getting online, they're trying to figure out, how do I get food? It's such a basic need, and our grocers are also missing out on $45 million. That's the full allocation of SNAP. So for the month of November, and now, of course, it's going to just be half of that. But that's quite a hit to our economy, too, and to our local grocers. And so as folks use their SNAP benefits and visit the grocery stores, it's also great for the economy. It's great for our grocers. For every $1 spent in SNAP funds, $1.50 goes back into the community. And so it's a wonderful economic effect for, our state and nationally as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't want people relying on programs like this, right? We want people to be self-sustainable. We want them to have thriving lives. We don't want them to be reliant on others for food. So obviously that plays in here as well. But what you mentioned is it's not just a complete drop in the bucket. It does come back to local retailers and local grocery stores. So I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But here's something that we have. You mentioned you have a lot of first-time people using the food banks and the food.
Yeah.
This is something maybe most people don't think of until they're in that moment.
Correct.
Right? They just go to the store, they buy food, they don't really think about it. I don't think about it. Outside of the charitable giving, I do, and I'm like, I have two modes, which is I'm thankful I can go just to a store and buy food, and also it really is awful that some people just can't do that. Yeah. But those are two different extremes in thinking. And so I don't really think about it on a daily basis, if ever, wait, what would I do if we didn't have food? And I'm sure a lot of people may be in that situation this week, last week, or soon may be there. So you mentioned there are a lot of problems navigating the food assistance programs and the food bank programs in Iowa. What does that look like? What are the problems? They can't just come to the door of a food bank and say, I need some help. Is there an official process?
Well, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's a problem. It's just a lack of knowledge. Because like you said, you don't think about how you get your food. And so folks who are utilizing SNAP benefits, and those SNAP benefits were enough that they didn't need the charitable food system, they didn't have to think about, how do I go to a pantry? What do I do? What do I need to bring something? Are they open every day? Are they open at night after work? And so there's that piece around it. How do I do it? Just simply, how do I do it? And so doing some research online or giving us a call or visiting our partners and asking them or calling them. Folks, there was kind of a somewhat of a panic because
Sure.
they just don't know. And I was talking with my own family this weekend, and I said, imagine if you went to a grocery store and it was closed. And so you didn't have access to that food. Now you have a budget for that, but you just didn't have access to it. And then you go to the next one and it's closed too. And you go everywhere. It's all your food access has been cut off. I mean, what do you do? And most folks don't know. What do I do? And that's where we like to say we are here to help. We want to help you get what you need in an area that's convenient to you at a time that works for your schedule. As folks are working, directing them to places that have, varying hours or day-long hours, or you can go over the lunch hour. And so our Find Food help is a great navigator for folks. But if you didn't know you needed food until this happened, you're not certain what to do.
Yeah, and not to mention when people are panicking, they don't make the best decisions, right? It's hard to find information when you're in panic mode. And so for those that are in that position, it might be good to kind of unpack a few terms. So there is like food bank and food pantry.
Yeah.
And people don't understand what the difference is between a food bank and food pantry. You're a food bank.
Yes.
And you work with pantries.
Yes.
So if people need help, they don't come to you directly. They don't like show up at the food pantry headquarters because you're a distribution partner.
Correct.
So for those that don't know or curious or are facing food insecurity right now, can you give them the overall lay of the land here in Iowa? What's the difference between a food bank and a food pantry? And of course, the pantries are your partners that you're talking about.
I would love to, because a lot of people, as you said, they use the term interchangeably. And so, they'll call a food pantry a food bank. And so the difference between the two is a food bank is a large distribution center. I'd love to have you come in for a tour, and any of the listeners who are interested to come in for a tour. It's a warehouse. We have racking up to the ceiling. We have forklifts. There's a lot of work going on there. It's like the back room or a distribution center of a grocery store or a Costco, looking something like that. And so we provide the food to what we call our partners, and that's the 700 folks who work front lines handing food to our neighbors in need. And so we have trucks on the road, we have delivery schedules, we have an ordering system, an online ordering system. And so our partners order food by the case. And so we distribute to our pantry partners. So pantries are what you would call, if you're thinking of it as a retailer, wholesaler, we're the wholesaler, and they're the frontline grocery store.
That's where you go and shop and get your food.
That's where you go to get the food. And so our partners, you can shop the shelves, you can get what works for your health or food sensitivities or for your family's needs. And as I mentioned, all of that, of course, is free because we are a nonprofit. We distribute food to nonprofits. Our job is to find food, and we buy it by the truckload, or it's donated by the truckload. We find food, we keep it safe. We have a giant walk-in cooler and freezer. Our walk-in freezer will hold 142 semi-truckloads of food. And so not your typical grocery store. That's that pantry part.
Right.
And so we keep that food safe. We pull those orders and we deliver it to the front doors with no delivery fees to our 700 partners, who then hand the food right to the folks who need it. And so a food bank is a large distribution center, and a food pantry is like a modified grocery store.
So the pantries aren't really sourcing this stuff. They're working with you to do that. Their job is clientele focused and getting food to the right people and managing basically the community relationships. And your job is to make sure they have food to distribute.
That absolutely, but most of our partners also source secondarily.
Oh, they source from other sources as well, not just you.
Not just us.
Goodness.
So they get their food from us, and I would say a majority of their food comes from us, a large majority. But they've created relationships with different groups who do food drives directly for them. Or they know that there are certain items available at the food bank, but there may be some preferred items or higher priced items. And so they may have a food budget that they work out with their local grocery store, where they do buy some things at retail or maybe discounted retail to fill in the gaps of what food bank doesn't have that is a high need for their own pantry. And from one pantry location to the next, you can imagine there may be different needs depending on the population that, visits those pantries. And so in addition to or as part of our pantry network and our system, we have 167 school pantries. And so those schools, they have a coordinator who orders food and we deliver it to them just like we would, a church pantry or an independent pantry. And school kids and their families can utilize that school pantry right there within their school too if they need resources. And we know that a lot of our school pantries have been doing additional outreach in the last couple of weeks as this kind of the unknown was looming, to let folks know, remember, we've got this pantry here at school, and some people maybe never needed it before, but they need it now. And so we provide food. We are just the big distribution center, and we provide support. We provide food safety training. We have conferences where there's continuous learning. So we really support those partners so that they can really expand their capacity and serve as many people as they can within their community.
Do the rules change per pantry? Like, are there different registration processes? Do you have to register for a card or an account that covers all of them? Do you have to register with each one? How do you find the one in your neighborhood?
Well, if you jump on to foodbankiowa.org and then click on our Find Food page, you'll find that resource that shows agencies near you that you can utilize.
So you have a page on your website called the Find Food page.
Yes.
And if you go there, you can find the correct pantry, and then they have listed their registration and how to get on there.
They don't have their intake requirements listed on the pantry or on the web page. And I would always, suggest calling ahead to make sure that their open hours are up to date. Some folks are talking about expanding their hours because of the number of people they see. But we have there are specific guidelines that all of our partners have to follow. All 700 follow, food safety and civil rights training and serving with dignity.
Sure, okay.
And all of those pieces. But the information they collect, what they report to us are the number of individuals served and the age groups of those individuals and how many of those households are receiving SNAP benefits. Outside of that, each agency can choose what else they would like to include in their intake process. And so it's not really a system where if you visit a pantry in Storm Lake, that you would be registered at a pantry in Clear Lake.
So each one has their own.
Have their own system.
Yeah. And then, so basically be cognizant or be aware of what the local, you called it an intake process.
Yes.
So it sounds like this is something maybe you should do in advance before going, or can you do this at individual pantries?
Most of them do it at individual pantries. A lot of them,
can just go there.
Yeah, you can just go. You show up when they're open, and they'll ask you a few questions. Some of them, it's 5 questions you might get asked. Some of them a few more than that. It varies from organization to organization. And it's basically a check-in process. Excuse me. And so each one does it a little differently. And so if you need to go to a pantry in Des Moines and you also visit one in Ankeny, you might see a little bit of a difference there.
Sure.
Yeah.
How is it funded? Because you mentioned that earlier you mentioned you are distributing these for free. You have a lot of food, and not all of it. I actually think a very low amount actually comes from state and federal funding, if any. So where's all this food that you're sourcing coming from?
Well, we source food from a lot of different places. And so USDA food currently makes up about 10% of our inventory. It's
only 10.
Only 10. And that's a very, very low figure. In a regular normal time, 6 months ago, it might have been 20%, 25, 30, that kind of range. During COVID, it was 50% and sometimes higher was USDA TFAP food. But right now we're getting very little support in the form of USDA food at a time when the need is rising. And we've seen an increase in need really since the government safety net programs reverted back to pre-COVID distributions back in April of 22. So we're 3.5 years into month over month record-breaking distributions. And so, as we look at our food, we need more, but we're getting less in the form of government support. We have a lot of food is donated to us by wholesalers, manufacturers, growers, retailers, and then we purchase food. And right now, our purchase food is at an all-time high at about 57% of our inventory is purchased, and we're now purchasing more per month or spending more per month on purchase food to make up the gap than we spent the entire year of 2019.
Goodness.
Yeah, so it's skyrocket is not too big of a word. It's been an enormous increase. Our partners they're busy all the time, really meeting that need. Our partners there is a small shared maintenance fee on food that they get from us, which allows, it's 19 cents a pound maximum, but our average is about 6 cents a pound. And so they have a little bit, to budget for in that space, but it's certainly not actually the cost of food. And we are 100% funded by, donors. It can be a corporate donor, it can be a foundation, grants, individuals, and the USDA support is a huge part of what we do, but that comes in the form of the food. And right now, of course, it's at a lower level, and there's some uncertainty as long as the government remains closed, what happens to our food inventory moving forward.
So there are two prongs to how you operate and how you're funded. One prong would be food donations, and you mentioned it's from individuals, corporate foundations, et cetera, et cetera. The other prong is that you get donations, cash donations, and that is also from, I'm assuming, some of the similar groups, corporate, individual, donations, foundations, right? Those are the two ways you're funded?
Correct. So two ways we're funded, yes, by those individual corporate, donors, foundations, grants. And then the second side of that, the support we receive is in food itself by the truckload, where there might be a wholesaler or a manufacturer that donates that food to us. And so great support on both sides via the food sourcing side and then the monetary donation to make up the difference to purchase food, but also, staff, keeping trucks on the road, just operational costs, of course, are funded all by donors.
I think USDA, and we're not going to do politics, so nobody worry. We don't do politics in here unless it's a politician and they know what they're getting themselves into. Then we do. But USDA Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins mentioned that there is a lot of fraud they're finding in the SNAP programs, in the food programs. So naturally, everybody's question is, how do you control for that? Are there systems in place to watch for that? Or is it kind of like, that's not our department, that's another department, we don't oversee and we don't police these things?
Well, that would be a great question for HHS because they are the ones who administer the program for the state of Iowa. It's not always HHS in every state, but that's how that federal program is administered here. I know we have about a 6% error rate. So that error can be anything from, I got the example a few weeks ago when I was at a conference that somebody said that they made $13 an hour on their SNAP application. But when they provided their stub, it showed that they made $12.95 an hour.
Oh, okay.
That's an error. That's an error rate. And so that error rate can look like a bunch of different things. Iowa's current error rate at 6% is quite low. There are many states that are in the double digits for their error rates. So we already have a great hold on the SNAP program and making sure that it's running as best as it possibly can.
So are you, is error rate also include fraud then? So it's like error rate, people making mistakes, but then also fraud, all of it, 6% generally?
That's my understanding.
That seems low. Is that like it seems to me that you're performing pretty well. Is that nationally, does that track that you're doing pretty well on
We
that?
are. Iowa
Yeah.
does an excellent job. It wasn't always that way, but Iowa is doing an excellent job.
Right.
Yes.
Excellent. We obviously appreciate your
Mhm.
work. What, just the last few minutes, what is the average person that darkens the door of a food pantry? Who are these people in our communities?
Well, that's a great question because a lot of us think that food insecurity happens to other people,
Mm.
and that they look different or
It's
they're
the homeless person under the bridge, and that's the only people using the food pantries.
yeah, there's a lot of myth busting that really needs to happen. So a lot of our families, a lot of our folks that come through the door are family folks, and they work. At least one individual in the household is working. It's just they're not making enough to make ends meet, and so as they look, where can I get support? They're using the charitable food system so that they can pay their rent and pay childcare and those larger expenses. And then it's folks on disability. They're disabled folks. They are unable to work, and so they don't have a lot of options. Their disability payments do not complete a budget that allows them to, again, pay for basic needs. And so they need some help. They have that gap. We've all seen those food prices go up as we shop at the grocery store. Everything has really kind of raised over the last couple of years and the last year specifically. And so as food prices kind of got out of hand, folks were realizing they could not stretch their disability income. Same with senior citizens. They've worked hard. They've paid into Social Security. They're living on Social Security, but Social Security is not enough for them to live a healthy life. And so to keep them from becoming ill or going to the hospital, coming home from the hospital, going right back in, we know that nutrition plays a big role in how a person recovers or their general health altogether. And so a lot of senior citizens are utilizing the charitable food system. Wow. But it's a lot of folks that are working. It's a majority of the folks are working, and they have families. And right now they're tasked with, how do I put food on the table every day?
Yeah.
With this interruption, how do I do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Tami Nielson, the CEO of the Food Bank of Iowa, joining us today. Thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast. If people want to donate, they want to donate cash, they want to donate food, they want to help, what's the best way to do that? Would it be through just go to your Food Bank of Iowa website and reach out there?
That's absolutely one way they can do it. We would be happy to receive their donations. As I mentioned earlier, we always love to take people on tours, really talk through what we do and the importance of it. We have a wonderful volunteer center. If you have time to give, you can sure volunteer at our volunteer center, and you can jump on our website and you can look for the volunteer button. The donate button is right there. We're happy to welcome more folks in, and we really couldn't do it without the support of donors. And so that's never been more important than right now.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I think what I've learned is that there is a good chance you will not be able to keep up in about a week's worth of time. If things go the way we think they're going right now, there is a good chance you won't be able to keep up. And so it's very, very important. If you listening right now want to help, it's very important that you reach out. So Tami Nielson, the CEO of the Food Bank of Iowa, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And for everybody listening live, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Appreciate it. All right, let's shut down the feed here.